All right, here we go. Yes, okay, we're starting up now. Excellent, excellent. Wanted to say congratulations for investing in your family today by joining us on AI Parenting Live. We are a judgment-free community moving from screen time to quality time, and our motto is don't sedate, relate to create. And today we are going to be diving deep into the whole world of relation by having Tara Linney with us joining live. Now, before I begin, I just want to make sure that we are all set up to begin with. But it looks like it. If you're able to hear us, feel free to pop yes in the chat. But I just want to make sure that we are all on and make sure that there's no echoes. Oh yes, there we go. Okay, there we go. I can see it now. Yes, fantastic. So, before I start, let me close that one. Yeah. And this one, coding and connection. Yes. Okay, Alice can hear us. Excellent. Glad to hear. All right. So let me switch. So if you're anxious about the future of your children, we're here to say that you're not alone. No one could have predicted how AI would change how we learn, who our friends should be, what activities we should be a part of, what we buy, who we date, and what we do for a living. And that's exactly why we're live to answer your most urgent questions for today. So I can see that Alice has already said yes. If you are able to, make sure that you post your questions in the comments below. We are going to be able to bring them up anytime during our chat. And so we're really excited to try this out live with you to answer your questions directly. Now, if you're a parent, the things that we explore today will help your child for a lifetime. And if you're not a parent, today's talk will give you new perspectives on why keying girls into coding is the new frontier of equity in our world of AI. Now, we are humbled to share this time with code equity author Tara Linney. Tara is an international award-winning educator who has helped several schools nationally and internationally with launching and sustaining effective one-on-one programs over the course of the last decade. She holds a BA in mass communications and an MS in the science of instruction from Drexel University. She has had the privilege to speak at over 100 conferences in 10 different countries and online, impacting the work of thousands of educators all around the world. Tara's book, Code Equity, Keying Girls into Coding, is the essential guide for enabling equity through learning computer science. Her overall mission is to create a culture of equitable learning conditions for learners of all ages. Tara, we'd love to get to know you a little bit by learning about the biggest struggle you had to overcome, which prompted you to write Code Equity. Do
For
you want to give us
sure.
a little intro?
Yeah,
Cool.
sounds good. So I won't repeat too much. Yeah, I've worked overseas. I've worked in Singapore. I've worked in France. I've worked in the US. I've got a lot of different backgrounds. And I think the biggest struggle that I had to overcome, which led me to write the book Code Equity, Keying Girls into Coding, was going from working in an all-girls school and seeing some of the challenges with getting girls into learning how to code and learning about computer science in that environment, to a couple of years later moving overseas to Singapore. And when I worked in that school, I decided to kind of try something. And so I set up an after school club called Programming Pioneers. And I should have known better. You know, when you name something that is that let's see, male heavy, I guess you can say. You're going to get more males that join than you will females. And so, which was the case. So in that club, it was an elementary club, and I had 24 boys and one girl sign up. Um, yeah, having that experience with students for like a whole semester, just around like how to make projects on Scratch and how to do physical computing and things like that, really got me thinking and comparing like, whoa. A couple of years ago, I was at this all girls school and I saw some of the challenges in that environment. Now, fast forward 2 years later, I'm in this international school and I've got one girl who signed up and 24 boys, and I see the gender dynamics in that environment as well. And it got me into researching and digging deeper into just why that gender disparity exists, and how we can help to close those gaps. Because oftentimes, what we'll see in environments is people will say, and parents will say this, teachers will say this, professionals will say this, and they'll say, "I'm not a science person," or "I'm not a math person." And what happens is when students and when children hear that from adults, and if they're adults that look like them, they're going to look in the mirror and say, this person that looked like me just said that they're not a math person and they're not a science person, so I'm not one either. In addition, in movies and on TV and online, there's all this stuff about who the types of gendered roles that people are in who are the founders of these companies, right? And so when you've got social media companies and TikTok and Google and Microsoft, and you look at the boards and you look at who's running it and who created it, Facebook, right? You see the same gender dynamic in those companies. And when students start to learn about that, they don't see themselves. And that coupled with my like in classroom and in environment experiences is what prompted me to write the book Code Equity: Keying Girls into Coding, because we've got to understand what the problem is in order to be able to address it.
That is so awesome. Tara, or maybe I'll just switch to this view. Like one thing I really appreciate about you is like it's like a real challenge that you had just from the start, and so I appreciate you highlighting this, and it leads into the theme of today's talk. So I just want to make sure that I just cover it, because you've already covered part one, which is awesome, which is what we want to do. We're getting right into it. So sorry, I'm going to switch back. As Tara mentioned, today we're covering 3 different topics. So the first is what biases hold girls from learning coding. The second is what's the reality of today's world of coding. And then the third is how does coding relate to gender equity? So without further ado, we're already starting to explore that first aspect, which is what are those biases? So you mentioned just at the beginning, Tara, that, well, you had 24 boys and one girl in this class, and you started to dive a little bit deeper, and that kind of led you to the creation of this book. So maybe you can tell us a little bit more about what did you discover? Like what kind of biases caused that type of shift and that change?
Definitely. So there were a few things. So when I started to get into like the actual book-based like research into, okay, what is the history of computer science and women, right? There's Grace Hopper, of course, but like what has there been since then? And as I started to read and read and read and just take the information in, I was like, whoa, 1984, when I was 1 year old, that's when everything changed. Like, and in 1984, you're seeing an uptick in, movies where the woman is the damsel in distress. You're seeing an uptick in video games where the woman is the damsel in distress. You've got Wonder Woman, but 9 times out of 10, you're always seeing these males in these roles in media. And when it came to the video game aspect too, like, I mean, no offense, Mario and Luigi, but like, can we get some, like,
you hit it right on the nail here.
Right, like, I grew up
there's
with
always
those games.
this role, like it's built into our games, it's built into our society and into our movies, and so it's hard to, like, when you see that kind of forms your view of what the world should be.
It's like in Mario and Luigi, from what I recall from those early years, it was like, okay, save the princess. Like, wait, what? And then like you see Hollywood, and it's like, oh, save the girl, or like it's got to be the hot girl, and like all this. And it's like, well, what about our brains, you know? And so, when I started to like, read back into just things that had happened over time that caused all of this to change, and also reflect on my experiences in growing up, and not seeing role models in front of me of successful women in the field, right? Or that are broadcasted on a daily basis. Like when I was in high school, Mark Zuckerberg invented Facebook, and it's like, oh, okay, white guy, Facebook. All right, what about these other tech companies that I use their products? Like, who's behind them? What impressions are left on what's developed based on who's building them, right? Because when we talk about programs being built, the person building them leaves an imprint on what they build, right? And so if the people that are building these tools that we use are white males, then there's going to be a diversity issue. There's going to be an equity issue, because empathy can only take you but so far. You need to have a team of diverse individuals that are developing these tools, right? And so, but in order to create that diversity on tech teams nowadays, our students and children need to be able to see themselves and the potential of technology in their futures, right? And like, I mean, I feel like
great, important point. Like, so who should be those models, Tara? Who would you suggest like are good role models that people we should be highlighting in schools to get girls like to think that, yeah, this is totally possible. These are people that I could look up to.
So, well, Google had this site, which was killed the other year. It happens, but it was called Made with Code, and it doesn't exist anymore. But what was nice about the site is that there were 2 3-minute long videos that were really fun and uppity, but that showed diverse women doing amazing things with computer science. And one that comes to mind right away is Danielle Feinberg. She works with Pixar Films. So, and if you Google her, or if you like put her name on YouTube, you'll probably come up with the video. But what was nice about that was, okay, young girls especially, they're watching these animated films, right? And like, they're seeing this really cool stuff going on. And maybe there's like a little inkling in them that's like, I wonder how that's made. One of the most inspiring things about Danielle Feinberg, and she actually spoke at ISTE a few years ago, if I recall correctly.
I recall hearing her talk at ISTE. I was like, this is such a great talk. We need more people like her. But that was awesome that you mentioned her. Because
I think I was like,
it came to mind. I love it.
Yeah, I'm trying to like remember that ISTE exactly. I think that I was like in a balcony that was like not in the main main stage area. But I was like in the up balcony, and like it was quiet, but there were like the TVs, and I saw her, and I was like, oh my gosh, it's her. It's like really her. But the really cool thing about her is that she's really like down to earth, and she shows how technology and computer science come together in making animation. And the cool thing about this is that when girls see that, and when they see somebody who looks like them talking about their cool job in the tech world, which is actually making animated movies, they're like, whoa, the connections start to form, and they start to make these links. and then they start to explore. So we need to be exposing girls to more examples of girls and women who are doing these really cool things in tech. And one of the nice, before I forget it, kind of segues into that. So Khan Academy, which is a free resource, has a whole animation curriculum for free that if students want to learn about animation and computer science, they can teach themselves on Khan Academy. So it's not something where like a new software has to be purchased or you've got to spend or invest a lot of money. Time, yes. Money, not so much.
So I'm going to put Danielle Feinberg, Feinberg, in the chat. And I just wanted to, like, before we move on, highlight that we've got some of our regulars here. I want to say hi to Alice. Thanks for joining us. We appreciate it. Edna says hello as well. She's joining us as well. And she says it's good to be here. So we appreciate you, Edna. And I had a question come up from Steph, and she's saying, my son's into tech and video games, but has gone physically inactive, not really wanting to move anymore. Any suggestions of how we get him to not be so slothful in terms of the movement?
So it depends on the video games. There's a lot of really fun fitness games that are out there, and they're on commercials, but it also depends on like your gaming system. What I would say is, well, you can't really April Fool's it anymore because April Fool's is already passed. Depends on your son's age also, but maybe slowly start to swap out some of the games that are currently there with fitness games, with games that require your child to actually get up and move around, because they do exist. And it depends on if you're Wii or PlayStation or Switch. Like it varies based on the platform, but they definitely exist on all platforms.
That's a really great point. Like that's a good way to get started. And there's so many, like, even games that you can play on your mobile that are kind of get you outside and get you moving as well. So thanks for suggesting that. It's a great one.
Yeah, like I play well, speaking of mobile, I play like Fitbit. They have the bingo challenge, which is like really basic, but I'm a bingo fan. And then there's another app that's connected with Fitbit that is called, what is it called? It's something about like a bunny race. Oh, Get Fit Bunny. And so every time I get a certain number of steps, I earn a certain number more moves to go towards solving like a Candy Crush type of puzzle. It's fun.
Edna says like, wow, it's amazing. So lots of stuff there. Great. So, okay, if we're moving on, one thing I was going to ask is, actually, how's the best way to do this? I'll go back here. The second area that we were going to move into was, people have these biases because perhaps they don't see the role models in this space. But what is the reality? Like, okay, so they don't see it, so maybe they have some assumptions about what it is, and maybe like I wrote in the promo for this that there's this kind of feeling that it's this recluse, right? Like this person who doesn't talk to anybody. That's the coder. But is that really the case? Like, what are coders like? And maybe you can speak from your experience of what the world of coding is like.
Definitely. So when you talk about coding and computer science, it's not like it was back in the 1980s where, you've got this basement, and the lights are like really low. And then you've got somebody who's like just like chipping away at the computer. It's not like that anymore. It can be. It depends on who's doing it, right? But coding and computer science, the worlds have become a lot more collaborative in that, yes, there's going to be time where you're solving problems and creating algorithms on your own, but your eyes are not the only eyes that are ever going to be on that. And now with more and more people of all ages, like children and adults getting into computer science, there's like this whole community around the area. Like if you, as an adult, wanted to explore computer science, there's a lot of different like meetup groups that are meeting online around it. And there's a lot of different free resources out there too, in order to learn like the foundations of computer science and machine learning and like how those things fit into society. So it's
So
like,
can okay, so I love this. Like we're living in a collaborative world. You're suggesting to join a community. Can you give some examples of communities that might be good to join?
definitely. So it depends on your role. Like if you're an educator, for example, there's a whole ISTE community around computer science, and there's one around artificial intelligence. ISTE is the International Society for Tech and Education. Long acronyms. If you are just a parent, or just an adult who's interested, there are meetup groups, and meetup groups are mainly free, but it's based on your geographical area. And I mean, meetup groups cover everything from, like, I was in one when I was in Paris around like writing, and it was called Shut Up and Write. And so we'd write for like 3 hours every Sunday and stop for like 10 minutes on the hour. It was fun. But there are also ones around computer science. And there'll be like different boot camps, and it really just all depends geographically on your area as well.
Specifically in the computer science field, you talk about like some communities, I think in the book, for example, Technovation. Maybe you can talk a little bit
Yes.
about what that is.
Definitely. So, in the book, I talk about, and I'm updating the book right now, but in the book, I talk about Technovation Challenge. And Technovation Challenge in particular is this competition for middle school to high school girls, age girls, to create an app that solves a problem in their community. And so, like, that feels like a really big ask. But what's really great about it is that girls cannot work by themselves on this. Like, there has to be at least two, and teams of up to five are advisable. It's all free. And they make an app in an Android environment to address a problem that they see in their community. So it could be like people are littering too much, or maybe people aren't wearing masks, or there's a bullying problem. And what's nice is that in the curriculum for the Technovation Challenge, it provides step-by-step curriculum on what to do. So like as a facilitator, if you're a parent wanting to facilitate a group, you don't have to have very much like experience before going in, because it's all provided for you. And then it also teaches the girls how to build business plans and marketing plans for the app. And then if they want to, then they can submit the app into this international competition, which is, it's just amazing. If you have never heard of Technovation Challenge and you have girls, whether you're an educator or a parent, definitely check it out. There's a whole YouTube channel of like previous competitions, and it's great.
I love that. And the reason I mentioned it was because I helped facilitate a Technovation Challenge at the local university here in Calgary with Professor Maya Wang. And in there, attending it, they asked to do one session in a company where they have female developers, and they asked
Mhm.
them like, well, what are your biggest questions for the developers? And some of them were just saying, look, my mom tells me that like coding, like you're just gonna sit in a chair all day by yourself. Like just don't do that career. Like it's just not good for you. And it was interesting because the developer at the time said, well, no, actually, what we do every day is so collaborative. Every day we're meeting with people, we're connecting with customers. And I think what I like about Technovation was that connection to how is this going to impact our society. And I think that this is the challenge of a lot of our tech today. When we think about the future, we only think about the future often, maybe it's a male perspective, from the perspective of technology. Like, oh, AI is going to like enable this, but we don't think about it from the perspective of society as a whole. The example was that I heard from my brother the other day was the Jetsons. So the Jetsons had very futuristic technology, But they never predicted in the movie that the role of women working, for example, like the assumption was most women were staying at home at the time when the Jetsons first came out. So they never envisioned the society changing because of the technology. But I think this is the key challenge of our day, is that the technology and the society are together, they're interwoven. And the challenge is not the AI technology. The challenge is, what does and technology do? How does that change our society? And we need more women who are thinking about the consequences of where this is going.
Definitely. And you bringing up the consequences aspect actually made me think of something that you shared with me, which is this Netflix film called Coded Bias. And it is a must watch, very eye opening. And it looks at who who are the developers behind like these big brother like watch companies, right? Or the developers behind the AI that can like read our minds. And why is it that some people, based on the color of their skin, when they put their hand under a water faucet, it doesn't sense their hand? Or when they
Yes.
hold their face up to get it scanned, it doesn't sense their face. And so um, yeah, the
Like,
lead in
it's
that
the
documentary, like,
bias against the highly melanated, bias
right.
against, like like it's all those biases in our society, right? It's the reason why, I mean, sorry, Amazon's AI algorithm was not hiring as many women for their warehouses, because most of the people who are already working there were men. They're just using the existing data. And so
Right.
knowing this code is kind of like knowing the law of computers and how they work. And so we had a great question from Alice. I want to bring it up if it's possible. So Alice asked, do you think that coding should be considered a subject like English or mathematics in the K to 8 curriculum?
So K to 8, so here's how I would do it in a dream world. um, I would put coding computer science as its own subject in high school. In K to 8, I would integrate it mandatorily throughout subjects in every grade level, because oftentimes when you're in, I can speak for like K to 5, for example. In K to 5, you tend to see one teacher teaching all of the subjects, maybe two teachers teaching all of the subjects, depending upon where you are. I've worked internationally, and that has been the case there as well. But that was also only 2 countries. Anyhow, I digress. Um, when
No,
you get
please
into
do. I love. I'm always interested in your background and your history. Give us more.
well, when I worked in both of my schools when I was abroad, they were both American schools. So I worked at the Singapore American School, and I worked at
Okay.
the American School of Paris. Um, so they used, in both stances, they used uh, what was I about to say? Yep, that one. Okay, I was about to say a totally different thing, but they use Common Core as their
Yeah.
standards. And when you are in a school that uses standards, okay, one of the funnest things about the book for me was that I love researching and I love data. Like, you give me a spreadsheet and I'm like, oh my gosh, I could stare at this for hours, and I have. Um, but in the back of the book, it maps Common Core standards to different computer science activities. And when you look at programs like code.org, for example, in their curriculum, they have their curriculum mapped to Common Core standards. What does that say when a curriculum is mapped? That says that the tool or the product or wherever you're going that says that it's mapped and linked does not need to live on its own. And so when you look at K through 5, there are small, simple little things that can happen in classrooms where computer science starts to be infused into the curriculum, right? Like little changes in words that are being used. When you're talking about pattern recognition in kindergarten, what's the pattern here? Link that back to a coding activity where they're seeing tangrams, where they're seeing puzzles. And then the students will start to make the links and they'll go home and say, "Oh, I just did this thing on the computer. I did coding. Wait, but I also did math. Oh, wait a minute." And the more that they start to see those connections happening in the core subject areas, the more comfortable they get with learning how to code, and the more comfortable they get with learning about computer science, so that by the time they're in middle school or high school and they're able to choose their electives, computer science now becomes an option because they've been exposed to it, and not just in one class, but throughout the duration of their academic career to that point.
Tara, I love what you're saying. You're blowing my mind because it like connects all those different things you were referring to earlier. Okay, first of all, like I really appreciate that, because to me it's like the problem with computers is it's just that, right? It's just a tool. And it's kind of like saying to people, to girls, yeah, be really excited about the tool. And I think what you're saying is that no, it's not about the tool. It's about how does that tool actually impact people. That's what Technovation does. That's what we can do. Like if we do more integration and we say this is just the way that you get to your goal, it's just a tool that helps you get quicker there, then the application becomes immediately apparent and obvious. Like, this is so good. Alice is already saying like, oh, if I can add that. Yes, I love that. I wonder if pre-service teachers are being trained to code or to use tech in their lessons more seamlessly.
That's a great.
You do some training, don't you?
Yes, I actually do. And yeah, so I do some training. And it varies state by state and country by country, right? It all depends on if computer science is a priority in a geographic area. Then you'll start to see one of two things. Not often will you see both, but you'll see one of two things. One thing would be in higher ed, when teachers are becoming teachers and becoming certified, it'll be a required course. It's not really required in most higher ed programs. Another thing that you might see is with new teacher onboarding. So there's actually three things. So the second thing that you might see is with new teacher onboarding, there might be like a lesson or two around here's what computer science is, and this is an initiative within our school. Number three is that you'll see schools and districts, and I've seen this in New Jersey, and I've seen this in some parts of Canada, and I have not actively seen this in other places. That doesn't mean that it's not happening. But what'll happen is the school board or the district, somebody who's a decision maker in the environment, will say, hey, computer science is a priority for the next 5 years. Our teachers need to learn this. And then what you'll start to see is professional learning opportunities that are being brought in, like either that live in the district or in the school environment, or they're brought in from the outside to get teachers taught around what computer science is and how to teach it. Because the important thing to understand when it comes to computer science is that it's not a didactic learning program. It's not a didactic learning situation. It's not a thing where, like with some standards, you have to teach how to write an essay. You have to teach proper spelling. You have to teach how to solve for X, right? With computer science, it's more, what we're seeing in education is that it's more about getting the educator comfortable with iterating on their practice, getting them comfortable with not knowing the right answer, and getting them comfortable with being a facilitator of how to learn. Because when students are learning this new thing, it shouldn't be something where the teacher is saying, this is how you do it. The students need to figure out how to learn it, and the teacher needs to be a guide by their side as they're doing this, guiding along the way, but not going into like standing up at the front of class saying you're doing step 1 followed by step 2 followed by step 3. And so
That is
that's a
so
total
awesome.
shift.
That is a huge shift. Yeah, like to me, that's a key aspect, like comfort.
Mhm.
Like people have this discomfort then to begin with, and it is only through repeated exposure and other people, like their role models, which could even be their teacher,
Mhm.
saying that this is normal. This isn't a big deal. Like, just you guys can figure this out. I know you can. I figured it out. You can figure it out too. And so really just guiding them, letting them explore, rather than dictating like, oh, you've got to learn this and then you got to learn this. It's like, that's the thing about everything is sometimes when you go like, these are a bunch of things that you have to learn, like the interest is immediately gone, but it feels like you've got to lead with that interest, especially for girls, like you got to make that context relevant pretty fast,
Mhm.
if you want them to be engaged and to go further on it.
Yeah, and speaking of like with girls, like another thing about it is the purpose. And so what'll happen sometimes in schools and in classrooms is that when coding is brought in, especially at the elementary level, it's like, hey, we're going to code this fun game. Okay, why? Who's it for? Why are we doing this? Like, if I wanted to make a game, I would have made a game at home, but I don't, you know? And so when it comes to girls, we need to have that purpose in there. What is the purpose of the game? What is the purpose of the digital story? If we say that it's a game to teach people how to XYZ, that's better than just saying, hey, build a game. And
Mm.
even empowering the students, boys and girls, to have them choose what XYZ is, but that the object of the game is for the end user to learn something.
That's so true. Like, and to getting to your point about purpose, I think we already have some great feedback from Alice. She's saying excellent. um, that to me, if that's okay, I'll transition to the next slide because I think what you're describing about purpose relates really well to the final area that we're going to explore, which is how does coding relate to gender equity? Like we talked about the purpose, and so if one of like the purposes, especially with code equity, was to get to that level of equity, like how does coding relate to it? And especially in our new world of AI, would love to hear your thoughts on this, Tara.
Definitely. So when it comes to how equity relates to coding, I mean, it relates in so many different ways. There's a gender line, there's a cultural line, there's a socioeconomic line. And so when it comes to computer science and when it comes to AI, representation matters. So when we talk about the future of technology, which I feel like is right on our doorstep right now, but when we talk about what that looks like, we need to think about who's designing it. And if we want something that is going to be representative of like our current environments, then we need more gender diversity, we need more race diversity, we need more just ethnic diversity in the people that are developing those technologies. And in order to get to that diversity aspect and in order to get to that equitable like side of things, students of all ages and races and genders and everything need to start to be exposed to computer science at a young age. And you can start when they're 2, 3, 4, 5. Like if they can talk, if they can read a little bit, they can figure it out. They don't need to be a fluent reader. And actually, computer science helps them to learn how to read, which is another part of my research. But anyhow, I digress.
Uh,
Um,
Before you like, because this digression I think is important. Um, the reason I wanted to just pause there is because I've been like myself looking at some of the things that have been happening, not necessarily because you have a background in Singapore, and to me it was this is interesting thing. I'm reading the like AI Superpowers book by Kai Fu Lee, and in it he talks about essentially this Sputnik moment for China in 2017 when Google's like their AI was able to beat Lee Sedol, one of the top seeded players at the game Go. It beat Chinese players at their game. And it was kind of this massive wake up call in China. We are getting our butts whooped, by America. We're in a lot of trouble here. And so government level changes in the curriculum resulted, specifically related to AI. And there was a leak. Let's see if I can bring it up. There was a leak of a picture of an AI textbook, which I found very interesting because it was a textbook that was to be used with kindergarten students, right? So they have a curriculum that goes like kindergarten to like grade 12, and it's all different levels and aspects of AI. And it's out there. Like, this is what they are doing now, right now. So this is, okay, I'm going to switch my camera view. Hope this works. So this is the example. So these words at the top here, these top 4 words are artificial intelligence. And then this says basically it's for kindergarten, the early kindergarten. So there's like 2 parts of kindergarten. So this is early kindergarten and moving down from there. And so seeing this made me think like Sputnik was huge for education because it meant like we were way behind. We've got to totally change everything that we do. We got to rewrite the curriculums. We need to make it so that, we are going to be competitive in this marketplace. And I don't know, like maybe it wasn't a big deal in America, but certainly in China and many places in Asia, it was a big wake up call. And as a result, like that stuff is now, it's in the curriculum. They're changing the way that they teach. Like they really want to be, they have like very high objectives to basically be leaders in this area in a very short, like a few years time, like by 2025, I think. They're like, yeah, we're probably going to be there. 51% of all venture capital related to AI is from China.
That doesn't surprise me. I mean, as not to get too much into politics, but it's all about what you prioritize. And so when, like with this new administration, let me not get too into politics, but with the new administration, when they talk about infrastructure for the future, right, and the future world of work, I'm hoping that in the very near future that there is more conversation around what jobs of the future actually look like. Because I think one thing that we've learned in this pandemic for like the last, 16 months or so worldwide, is that there's been an uptick in technology use, right? From healthcare professionals, like, it's not safe to go into the doctor's office, so you're on a Zoom or like whatever the, forget the name of the app that they use. But anyhow, you're like on an app. Students doing remote learning, having more screen time than they ever had before, right? TikTok becoming an overnight success. Like when I was abroad over in France, actually, I went on holiday once. Well, I went on a lot of holidays, but one time I went on holiday to Greece and I signed up for a tour. And, whenever you sign up for a tour, you meet all of these like random people and that you then become like Facebook friends with and all this, that, and the other. Well, Instagram. But I met this person who like actually works at TikTok, is like a pretty high up like director person, right? And he's like the guy who does like the chicken nugget thing and he puts the chicken nuggets in all of his TikToks. And I'm like,
I love it.
Okay. But in talking with him and like spending time with him while I was on this tour, I'm like, there's the world as we know it is changing. Like the future as we know it is changing. And so like if we remember back to when we were in school, and I can't really speak for like everybody in the audience, but like I went to high school, I graduated from high school like, well, I was in high school in the 90s, 80s baby. And so back then, we weren't really, in my environment, we weren't really being prepared for specific industries, right? But depending upon where you are, maybe you were being prepared for specific industries. I feel like if we're going to start to level out the playing field and make things more diverse and equitable, we need to make sure that all students are receiving computer science education in their K through 12 lives, not just once and not having the option, but having it be something that's a part of the curriculum. Because what we're going to see and what we've already started to see is an uptick in job opportunities that are in the tech industry, right? Google, for example, is opening a new data center in Raleigh, North Carolina. Like, who opens things in the middle of a pandemic? And so what we're also seeing is an uptick in, what's the word that I'm looking for? Let's see, what's the thing that, an uptick in hackers, right? And so, right? And so you have different types of hackers, and actually the government employs hackers to figure out how the hackers did what they did, right? And so like Facebook just had a whole big data leak, like 5 million or 15 million
500
accounts.
million user accounts that was leaked, and they're like, oh, it's no big deal. I'm like, no, it's a big deal. It's a big deal.
Right. And so like at the very least, if we are empowering students to understand how their data is being used and why ads come up that like, and how they can protect their data, I think that's the first step. The second step is teaching them how to be the people who create these systems, right? Because it's like I've been talking about this whole time. If we don't have the gender diversity in there, then, you know, when there's a random drawing going on, the white male is always going to win. Why? Because the white male created the algorithm. So it's important. It's important for students to learn about these things.
You raised so many good points. It like kind of I'm trying to stay on top of everything, because really the key that I took away from that last bit was that we need to start thinking about how do we prepare, like how do we prepare them for the future, because the world is already changing. We know this. We're just trying to figure out the best ways to keep them in tune. And it does feel like when it comes to equity as a whole, like we don't often consider equity and coding to be like the same thing. Like we feel like coding is this weird thing. Like, why do I need to learn this? And then equity is this other thing. Like, and we don't see how that they're related. And I remember a quote from Meredith Whittaker, who said, concentrated power is being masked as technology innovation. So all of these things that we see as coding and tech and all these like, oh, it's really complicated math stuff. To me, I feel like it's on purpose. We don't want you to explore it. We want you, like the people in power want you to think that this is too hard. You would never, like, it's very complicated. And as a result, they can maintain their hold onto basically concentrated power, because nowadays more and more industries are being controlled by fewer and fewer people. Like Bill Gates alone probably has more influence on world health policy than many countries. And in the same way, like, why are all these tech companies going up and buying land everywhere? Because they know that that's where the food supply is. So they're soon going to control your food. They're going to control your health. Like, there are few aspects which they will not control.
I mean,
Tara, tell me about it.
They already do. I mean, when you think about it, like, okay, so like if we take kids kind of out of it, if we just look at our lives as adults and how we use technology, I sleep with a Fitbit on, okay? It tracks my sleep. It tracks my heart rate. It tracks my steps. It tracks other things that I can choose to turn on or turn off, right? Like I can track my food. I can track everything if I want to, right? In terms of like body and health stuff. And so I've now gotten to the point actually for a few years now, where first thing I do when I wake up in the morning is not, meditate or anything like that. It's I check to see what my sleep score was, because if I only got 6 hours of sleep, I want to go back to sleep. I just bought noise canceling headphones, right?
Hmm.
I bought them because the mockingbirds outside are way too loud at 2, 3 o'clock in the morning because it's spring and,
Yes.
birds. Um,
That's right. That's
anyhow,
right. Those birds getting busy. Yeah.
they're doing something.
Yeah.
Um, but with the noise canceling Bose headphones, that's still technology. But what it does is it helps me go back to sleep, right? But it's technology that I'm relying on to do that. I have a Pixel phone, and if I say the G word, then it thinks that I'm talking to it. Um,
Mm.
you know, it. Whenever I look at my G alerts, because I don't want it to unlock and say, "Hey, blah blah blah, the morning is this." But when I look at the news, based on what my search history was, it gives me a list of about 20 different articles that I might be interested in, and I'm like, "Who?" On Facebook, based on photos that I liked or posts that I like, it has a whole algorithm saying, "Hey, you might want to see this." And it's like, no, actually, I've already seen that. But, data surrounds us, and there's not really a way that we can just turn it off and say, nope, because we're always going to use something. I drive a 2018, well, I won't give all my details away, but I drive a 2018 vehicle. And before I went abroad, my last vehicle was manufactured in 2010. And it didn't have all like the cool gadgets and things like that. My vehicle right now is a push to start vehicle. And as soon as I get in the vehicle, it links to my phone and starts playing whatever I have on Spotify.
Wow.
Like our technology is getting to be smarter than us in some ways, which is really scary, but really comforting in some ways. Like it makes us have to think less, but we do need to be mindful of what we're sharing and what's tracking us. Like I know what's tracking me and I'm okay with that, right? But do our students know? And when we do Google searches and we're searching for things, like there's like a little black book that's being kept of everything that we've ever searched for, right? And a profile being set up
Yep.
about us. And so do our students know this? Do they realize the ramifications that that holds on their futures? And if they don't, it's about bringing things like digital citizenship in to teach them, hey, this stuff matters. And it doesn't have to be a canned lesson. If you have teenage students, or if you work with high schoolers, the latest season of The Bachelor is enough to show how somebody's, what was it, a Facebook or a Twitter post about the main lead dressing up in antebellum dresses
It's happening in that
as a
time, right?
Halloween
Like just
costume
those.
like 3 years ago. Yeah, you know what I mean? So, like, when
Yeah.
students see these real world examples, it hits closer to home rather than doing a canned lesson on, okay, we're going to learn about data privacy. No, just look at the news and then have a discussion and then get into why and how.
I think that's a key example. Yeah, I think that's key. Uh, so I would say the key here is that it's about like digital citizenship is more than just showing like this is how you do privacy, this is how you do one thing. It's about like what are the practical real world examples, and all you did was just describe like example after example after example of how this is impacting you. And it kind of doesn't matter if you are into coding or not. You are influenced, you are impacted by code in a big way. And so when you start to see how ubiquitous it is, did you just order something at that McDonald's kiosk and put this information in? It's
Mm-hmm.
like, yeah, I did. It's like, okay, well, that stuff's being tracked too. Did you just
Yep.
like browse something like on the web and you just like flip through some things on a like your Instagram? It's like those milliseconds were all counted, just so you know. Like you may not have explicitly hit the like button, doesn't matter, right? Like we
Or did you
probably
just
can
sign up
build.
for something and say yes to the terms and agreements, but not actually read the terms and agreements?
Yeah.
Yeah,
And who has the
like,
time, right? Like it would take
right.
years just to read them, and they get updated all the time. Like I think it's kind of, we're in a post consent world that is used to be the case many years ago. Like computers was just for fun, and it like if it doesn't matter if you didn't participate. But nowadays you don't say agree, you can't get like the jobs, like at
Right.
least the freelance type jobs. You can't, get employment if you are trying to get a LinkedIn profile. Like you can't connect with your friends. Like all of these things are withheld from you. Like our
Hmm.
basically our functioning society is withheld from you if you do not agree to the terms and conditions.
Yeah. It's a
So
dark place. I mean,
I know. Like I try to not always go so dark in our chats, but I think it's important. It kind of draws the reason why this is so important. This is code and equity, and um, to me, it goes back to, well, I think what you described is giving practical examples. So the more that the parent can explain those practical examples, the more that, for example, a person's like a parent's daughter, for example, would be more interested in learning code if they just explain, you see that there's that connection, right? You see like this is how it affects all aspects of your life. And it's interesting you mentioned Raleigh, in North Carolina. Was that right? Like Raleigh in North
yeah,
Carolina? Because I
Raleigh.
remember
Hmm.
like they have some of the largest research centers there,
Hmm.
right? And so it's like wherever there's research going on, these tech companies, they want to be right there on the forefront. And when it comes to like we keep thinking like, oh, maybe the law is going to save us, but the reality is many of these tech companies are as powerful as countries, and sometimes more powerful than some countries. And what this means is that sometimes they influence the laws. By the time a law is implemented and it's ready to go, they've already figured out the next thing. Like that's why all the researchers are there. Like they're solving the next problem. Oh, okay, you don't want cookies anymore? That's fine. We got another
We
method,
have
to
brownies,
track
right?
you. Yeah,
Oh,
yeah, we've got like the
that too.
federated learning cohorts, like or whatever. It's like whatever. We'll find a way. Like we've got like the smartest people on the planet, working on this stuff. And I think that that's the key part is like equity is just about, it's about like you having a say and you having a little bit of control. And in this world of tech, you don't have a lot of say and you don't have a lot of control, especially if you don't know code and you don't know how computers think, and or I don't know if I would describe it as thinking, but how computers process your data and how what they do with it. If you don't understand some of those basics, you're always going to be subject to the algorithms, and you'd be wondering like, why did it not give me any recommendations, or why didn't I get recommended on? It could be like maybe all they want to do is be popular on Instagram. Okay, great. What does it take? Right? Like we think, oh, it's gonna be
Mhm.
because I'm gonna have like better posts or I'm gonna look more beautiful. It's like no, computers don't really like measure beauty that way.
Nope, not
It,
at
it turns
all.
out like certain things like brightness of the image, loudness of the video, like those are the things that it actually cares about, like not your like your appearance, and like we have these assumptions like, oh, it must be because like other people like, no, it has nothing to do with that, right? I did some experiments just like increasing the volume on some videos. I'm like, wow, they got promoted a lot
Mhm.
more because computers are very simple, right? Like they're like
They
numbers,
are.
and they like what they can measure quickly. And measuring
Hmm.
beauty is like a really hard number to measure. And so they say, forget those. Let's just focus on the easier things, which is how long is the video? How loud is it? How bright is it? Like those are easy to
Hmm.
calculate. So let's do those. So, mhm. um, so Tara, I want to like make sure I spend some time, and I want to highlight your book. If that's okay.
Okay.
So oh, I'm sorry. I need to remove this caption first. Yeah. All right. So we have been talking a little bit about Tara's book, Code Equity, during this time, and I just want to highlight that it is available on Amazon. You can go and purchase it there. Tara, maybe you can talk a little bit about where you can get access to the book and how people can get in contact with you if they want to know more.
Yeah, Amazon is the main place, or if you go to codeequitybook.com, it'll take you to Amazon. And yeah, it's a great guide. So if you teach students at all, it's a great opportunity to see how to develop the mindsets to teach computer science, but also where computer science lives in the curriculum, and what to do if you wanted to have like an after school club or type of like affinity group, and how to modify that so that it's more like computer science based. Like I talk about how I changed a blogging club from a blogging club to a coding club. Yeah, what was the other question that I'm not answering right now?
So if people have further questions, they'd love to get in contact with you. Maybe you can mention your Twitter or some other ways that people could get in contact with you.
For sure. So my Twitter is just my name, Tara Linney, TaraLinney. I'm also on Instagram, sort of. And then my company, my organization is TL Specialists with an S at the end.com. And so those are all the ways that you can reach me.
Cool. Before we go, I just want to thank you so much for being here today, answering our questions. We've already got some good feedback. Alice says, this is great. Lots of good information. Thank you. So thank you very much, Alice. Appreciate that. And I think this is only the beginning. That's what I'm gonna say. It's like this is only the beginning of this conversation, and I feel like it's so hard to cover stuff in such a short period of time. But really, when it comes to if there was one main thing that you would advise to parents in this time, like how can they best prepare their kids for the future, related, like especially like related to coding, what would be that one key message that you would like to leave to all of our audience today?
So I would say the best way to prepare your children for the future is to show that you're a learner right along with them. So instead of, okay, they're playing their video game, pick up a controller and play with them. Instead of, okay, they're like watching their Netflix shows, join in and see, because like there'll be shows, for example, like Ginny and Georgia, for example. I just finished watching that the other week. And there are examples in there of data and of technology and of ethics and things like that. And so it creates this really great way to parlay a conversation with your children around these issues. And if you're looking for things to do with your children, Technovation, not Technovation Challenge, but just technovation.com has this whole AI for families section, and it focuses on, let's see, the company is Curiosity Machine. And so there's a lot of like makery challenges that infuse artificial intelligence and computer science that are set up for you to learn as a family. So instead of it being, you know, Becky or Jill or Johnny are like in their rooms doing their thing, you know, creating that space and that time to learn together is really, really important, because when your children see you learning, they might be more likely to take risks as well.
Thank you so much. Having those conversations, real world conversations about what's going on around data, right? And having them maybe watch a show or having them talk about something in their real lives is a great way for getting people involved and more interested in data science and also interested in coding. So once again, Tara, thank you very much. And for everyone who was able to join us today, thank you so much. We love you. We appreciate you. We're here. We're all here working together. You know, we're all learning together. I learned a ton of things today, and I hope you picked up quite a few things as well. And with that, we thank you for your time, and we will see you again next week. And next week, we'll dive a little bit more. I want to cover the topic of AI in China, a little bit about what's changing with respect to curriculum. How are they moving forward with AI? Because I think this is a topic that's quite interesting, and it might give us some insights as to best practices that we can apply as well. Thank you very much. We will all see you next week. Thank you. Take care.
Thank you.